Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Human Performance Outliers podcast with Zach Bitter. Welcome, everyone. If you enjoy the show, please consider subscribing on your favorite podcast listening platform and YouTube. You can now also check out the full video episode on X. Please also consider sharing your favorite episodes and leaving a review. If you do that and tag me or send me a screenshot, I will enter you in a monthly raffle for a free 30-minute consultation with me. For full episode details, including notes, timestamps, transcripts, and the show Patreon page, and other ways to support the show, please head over to my website at zachbitter.com. There you can find all my coaching services, including some new offerings for 2025. You can also sign up for my Substack newsletter, where I have been publishing my training journal weekly, as well as other topic-based posts. If you have any questions or feedback, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website or at hpopodcast@gmail.com. A big thanks to Element, Delta G Ketones, Currents, and Maui Nui Venison for supporting the podcast. A full description of how I use these products can be found at the end of the episode. Discounts, promotions, and details can also be found in the show notes and at the end of the episode.
Of everything prior to that.
Yeah, it becomes, when you start doing like bigger days in a row, if you screw up hydration on that first day, you notice it so much that second day.
Oh, easily.
It's probably the hardest thing. It's almost more important than nutrition to some degree when you're this time of year anyway.
For
like,
sure.
Just making sure you stay hydrated.
Yeah, it's like something to navigate for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're gearing up for a triathlon.
Yeah, so I got Ironman November 16th.
Okay.
So this is officially 2 weeks into prep, and it's Ironman Arizona.
Uh-huh.
And I haven't done an Ironman since 2021. So it's like relearning nutrition at this level, fueling at this level, training volume and intensity, and balancing all those things.
Mm-hmm. So
it's fun to like re-navigate all of that once again. But getting back into swimming, like after this, I'm going for a swim, and just getting like the movement patterns of the swim down again is the most challenging part for me. Yeah, I would imagine just figuring out the pattern of the sports where your strengths and weaknesses are, and then pulling the levers at the right time. But yeah, the nutrition side too, because if you hadn't done it since 2021, you were probably last time maybe right before some of the hypercarbohydrate strategies that are now getting more and more popular. Have you looked at like, I'm going to fuel this thing a lot differently than I did? I'm fueling completely different.
Are you? Okay. What does it look like? Or do you have any ideas at this point?
So like right now I'm tracking all my nutrition and it's pretty consistent. So like on an average day, I'm like 100 grams of fat, I'm like 200 grams of protein, and at a minimum, it's like 550 to 600 grams of carbs.
Okay.
And then a lot of fueling around the workout specifically. So like yesterday, for example, I had a 90-minute ride. And within that 90-minute ride, I had 150 grams of carbs.
Okay.
So I'm like, I feel so much better on high carb. Are you still doing low carb, high fat?
I'm actually like, I think it was maybe 4 weeks ago. At this point, I've switched to a moderate carb diet, moderate to high carb diet, because I want to try racing high carb.
Okay.
Because I did low carb for 14 years, and all my 100 milers have been low carb. I've done a handful of 50 milers on high carb before I switched to low carb. So I just want to figure out, see what it's like, see if I can get, because, well, I guess there's maybe a little more to that. When we started seeing these like hyper carb fueling strategies where people were going like above and beyond what we would reasonably see necessary from just like, all right, your fat ox and your carbohydrate oxidations are here. Maybe you need like say 80, 90 grams. And you see guys doing like 110, 120, 150. It's
per
like,
hour.
Right. So they're going above what their like physiological requirement would be, and they're reporting benefits. So it's like, my thought was like, well, I wonder how that plays, because my fueling strategies in the past would be, I'd go into a lab, I'd do the metabolic cart test, I'd see where my fat ox, my carb ox was at the pace I was going to race at, and that's usually, I'd fuel the high end of the carb on that, just to make sure like I was getting enough. But then with all that stuff coming out now with the really high stuff, I was like, well, I wonder if I would do even more than that, if that would give me an additional benefit, but with the context of my normal low carb diet. Because for me, like at my 100-mile intensity, my carb requirement based on fat ox charts is only like 40 grams an hour. So it's really low.
relatively speaking. But I was like, well, wait, maybe if I do like 60, I can get whatever benefit we're assuming is there based on like all the Tour de France athletes and cyclists and things that are kind of reporting these really high numbers. I tried that in a race and I didn't really notice a difference. So my first thought was, well, maybe it's something to do with the fact that I'm on a low carb diet. Normally, in order to really leverage that, I would have to be on a moderate high carb diet going into the race. So this is kind of like the follow up to that. I'm going to do a moderate high carb diet, see if I can push. I'll have to push even higher now because I'm sure that'll shift my fat ox rates to a degree where now, my intra race carb need is probably going to be closer to like, say 80 grams during the 100-mile. And then maybe I can test going up to 100 plus and see if I see something that is like above and beyond what I would expect just by matching the physiological need. So it's an interesting experiment. We'll see what happens, I guess.
When you say you're moderate right now, what do you consider moderate?
It's like about 60% of my intake is from carbohydrate.
What would you say roughly gram wise?
So depending on the day, I'm probably I'm hitting probably like 3,500 to 4,000 calories a day on like a decent training day. So I'm probably getting up to like, what would that be? Like 600, maybe 700 grams at most.
Yeah. Yeah. I can tell a huge difference on the days, I've underfueled the days prior, especially going into a big day.
Mm-hmm.
Like today I have a relatively lower volume day of training.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a 9-mile run this morning and I had about an hour swim this afternoon. Yesterday was a bigger day. Yesterday was a 3.5-hour training day.
Mm-hmm.
And I ate a ton
Yeah.
yesterday. So this morning I woke up feeling solid. But in that first week of training back, trying to just like get my legs under me again with this type of volume and intensity. Last week I'd say I underfueled, underconsumed.
Mm-hmm.
This week I'm kind of like figuring out. But I was looking back at like Ironman videos from my first Ironman triathlon 2019.
Uh-huh.
And I really had no clue what I was doing in terms of fueling.
Yeah.
Because I've documented all this along the way, so I can go back and watch these old videos.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at my diet then compared to now, and my fuel requirements hasn't necessarily changed, but the amount of fuel that I'm shoveling in now compared to then is night and day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just finding I'm recovering and training a lot more efficiently.
Yeah. I haven't got into like the real hard part of the plan yet, where I think I can see if I see a big difference, my guess is I'm going to see it during doing like short intervals and long intervals and stuff like that. And I'm just starting to kind of get into that side of the training. I had been doing quite a bit of that on the bike, but I didn't really have a good perspective of that. Everything was kind of new. All the data points I would get were like, I didn't have like a comparator on low carb to compare it to. So, maybe it was better and I just don't know. But I'm curious, like if I get out on a track and do like 400 meter repeats or like 60 seconds hard type stuff, if I'll notice some benefits from the higher carbohydrate stuff, because that's where it technically should show up. And then it just becomes a question of like, okay, can I raise the ceiling a little bit with that extra and then pull up my aerobic threshold, which is where like the kind of the important intensity would be for 100 miles. And if so, then as long as I can fuel high and get away with it, then maybe I run a little bit faster with it. So
Yeah. How are you using the bike for training right now?
So it started out basically just doing it exclusively, where I would do like a heavy amount of like zone 2 and like 2 quality sessions, like usually like something around threshold and something around VO2 max once per week. And then maybe a third session where I was just a little more kind of spontaneous, just like chasing segments on Zwift or something like that. And then as my Achilles tendon started loosening up and allowing me to do more running, I started kind of phasing in more running and pulling a little bit back on the bike. Now I'm at a point where I've done a few speed workouts on the run where I feel comfortable that my Achilles is ready for that. So I'm starting to sort of shift some of the speed work off of the bike and then onto the run. And I think my plan is going to be kind of when I get into the meat of the training for the 100-miler is I'm going to try to keep a good 5 to maybe 7 hours worth of volume on the bike alongside the running volume, and just keep my running volume a little bit lower than I would historically for a race. And I'll probably do mostly zone 2 on the bike going forward, but I might do like one session that's got some quality in it when I'm feeling like I've got a little bit of extra gas in the tank on the more higher intensity stuff along the aerobic intensity spectrum. So I'm still kind of playing around with it a little bit.
Are you using threshold based off of FTP?
FTP,
okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So I threw another big wrench in it too. So like when I didn't plan on the Achilles injury, go figure, right? And so that happened, and then I was like, okay, I can't run for a little bit. So I had just like a stationary bike that I could use. And then I'm like, I'm going to use this for like a month and decide if it's something I'm actually going to make use of. And if it does, I'm going to update to something more like thorough. So I could even do like some Zwift races or something like that if I want to. So I got to that point where it's like, okay, this is something I want to really kind of keep into the program more structured wise. So I got the, what is it, Garmin, it's over there, the Neo T2 Smart thing. So that's like step one. Now I got to get the bike for it. And then I'm going to redo all like my FTP tests and stuff on that just to see, because it would probably be some variance between that and just the stationary bike. But yeah, that's how I've been kind of planning or doing all the workouts on. Did the FTP test and then have used that as like watts to kind of guide the interval sessions.
What's your FTP right now?
305.
That's solid.
Yeah, I think it was like 4.7 watts per kilogram or something like
solid.
that. Yeah, so it's been fun.
I love the bike. Like I started riding again when I had a leg injury earlier this year, and I couldn't run for a few weeks. And that's what gave me like that was like the bite of the bug.
Yeah.
That kind of put in my ear of, hey, maybe like a triathlon is in the future. And it's such a different level of cardiovascular and muscular endurance training. You know, it's really hard for me, at least, to simulate that type of effort on a run that I can get on a bike.
Yeah.
And reduce risk of injury. I've been loving it.
Yeah, there's been some interesting things I've noticed. When I did my first set of strides and then my first short interval session running, I was shocked at how quick I got up to pace. Like I would describe myself like with short intervals historically, it's like I kind of get into them. So it's like I'm better off like kind of being maybe a little on the slow end of average in the beginning and working up to it and then kind of finishing the interval a little bit stronger. It was like the exact opposite. It was like I had to like hold myself back in the beginning. And I think it was just like you get such good turnover from high pedal stroke rates on the bike. And then probably just like more of a low impact balance between biking and running, that when I go out and do something fast, like my leg turnover just wanted to spin quicker. And I had to like kind of watch the paces to make sure I wasn't like overshooting the target right away in the beginning and having to pull back. And that was something new that I can only really associate with the bike. But yeah, it's a cool input.
Yeah.
You were training for a marathon not that long ago, I think, and then had a bike accident, didn't you? And had to...
Yeah, so I was training for Grand Mole's marathon, and the goal there was that I was going to go for 2:30. Because my last marathon PR was California International Marathon, CIM, in 2023. Was at 2:39.
Yeah,
and I wanted to go after like 2:30 is my lifetime PR goal that I want to chase down. But what ended up happening was in December of 2024. I actually got hit by a car when I was running. So that took me out of running for quite some time. And I had a lot of kind of like direct trauma to the leg from that car accident. And then I jumped back into marathon prep, probably looking back too early.
Yeah.
And just the compounding, stress of running on top of those injuries. I thought it was actually a torn Achilles at first. And then I got an MRI and the Achilles was fine. But there was just a lot of like bone contusions and problems within my feet. So I took 6 weeks off of running completely. That's what forced me to get back on the bike. And then didn't really want to jump back into marathon prep. And triathlon was just calling me. I was just ready for something different, something new, and had some variation for multiple reasons. One, just like the physical challenge of. And as someone who creates content, it felt more interesting to create a series around an Ironman as opposed to something I've done in the past being a marathon.
That's the coolest thing about your brand is you you can go whatever direction is calling you, but you're also incentivized to do that, because I think the people, I mean, I know when I follow your stuff, like when you're building up to something and you finish it, once you finish it, my next thought is like, okay, he's going to do something different. And it's the different is what I'm usually looking for.
Yeah.
So like, and that's just kind of the balance I usually find. Like I try to find it in ultra running to some degree, where there's just a wide variety of different ultra type races where you get sick of one, you can kind of pivot to something different for a while and hit the reset button. But I mean, your range is from bodybuilding to marathoning to ultra running.
I mean, I love like all things performance and fitness.
Yeah.
And that's what's fun for me is like, I'll go all in for a prep and document the process. And like when I'm going to prep, I am dialed, I am focused. Like right now being in this Ironman prep, it's like, I always train, I'm always on top of my diet, but when I'm in a prep, it's another level. It's like complete focus. And like when I finish one prep, it's like, well, what do I want to pursue next? Like what is calling me? What feels interesting? You know, like last June, actually, I started training for my first High Rocks. I did High Rocks Dallas in November, which was a completely different style of training that I've done the last couple of years. Very humbling in many ways. And like I learned so much through that process. And for me, that's what's fun is like while I'm going through this experience and documenting it, like I'm learning along the way and then sharing what I'm learning in the content, the journey, and the stories to help people, you know, pursue something similar. That's like, for me, there's so many different angles of why I love pursuing these goals.
Do you find when you kind of pivot, you get a lot of motivation from, okay, I'm starting something that has some competing inputs compared to what I was doing, and then you see some probably earlier progress that really kind of ignites the drive, or is that something that's just kind of passively along the way?
I think it's probably something that's just passively along the way. I do love being a student in all aspects of life. So like when I'm in, like, clear example, when I was in my prep for High Rocks, when I started that prep, I had no clue anything about High Rocks. So all of the content I was consuming during that training block was like High Rocks specific podcast and, you know, like high intensity interval training studies and articles and learning how to fuel for that type of race and effort and just being a student in the process. It's very humbling. And I have no problem. I've never had any problem admitting to like, I don't know what I'm doing right now.
Sure.
And even going back into this Ironman prep, the last Ironman prep I did was 2020, 2021. I am relearning things that I haven't done in 4 or 5 years. So it keeps things very fresh and interesting, but it puts me back in that position of being a student, learning something either for the first time or relearning it. And that for me makes things super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, because there's the rabbit hole you can go down, especially if it's brand new, like High Rocks, where like if you redo a marathon, you can go down some new rabbit holes, I'm sure, but you've gone down a lot of those already. But High Rocks is totally new. And then there's that whole process of just kind of immersing yourself in a very new community and building something around it. So do you find that now that, you know, now BPN is so big and your brand is so big, when you jump in something like that, does it feel like there is like a wave of momentum that comes with you into that sport if it's small enough, I guess? Well, even if it's relatively big, I think there would be probably a big enough wave of momentum to be noticeable. But do you kind of feel that when you do those things?
For sure. Yeah. And I say this very humbly, but like I think a good example is like Leadville 100. Leadville 100 for me was a race that I knew of for many, many years. And I would put my name in the lottery and my name didn't get picked. And then in 2021, it was actually when I was in my last Ironman prep, in the middle of it, I found out that my lottery ticket got pulled. So I had the opportunity to run Leadville that year. And I really didn't know much about the race. I knew it was like this famous, respected, very challenging foot race, 100 miles through the Rocky Mountains of Leadville, Colorado. But when we created the doc around that race and we showcased the entire process. I know there was like a whole new level of exposure to Leadville 100.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of the same thing with High Rocks, like all of these sports and all of these competitions, they are massive on their own. But I think one of the things that we can do with my platform and BPN is showcase it and tell a story in a different way. And maybe someone who hasn't been familiar with that style of training or that race or that competition, showing them like this type of thing exists. Like when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
I did not know 100+ mile races even existed.
Right. Yeah.
Growing up in central Pennsylvania, no one was running that I knew 100+ mile races.
Yeah.
And then to find out there's this race, it's 100 miles. It starts at 10,000 feet of elevation,
Mm-hmm.
which just sounds impossible. So I think there's a lot of people out there in the world that don't know these things exist. And we can use these platforms to introduce them to these experiences that can be life-changing and transformational.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a couple examples of that exact thing, sort of. First, like when I got into ultra running, I knew so little about the sport. I did Desert Solstice Track Invitational for the first time in 2013. So the sport was really just starting to get kind of popular again. I knew about the 100-mile distance, obviously, and I went to that race to see how fast I could run 100 miles. I found out at mile 90 that there was a 12-hour world record that I was on pace for. I didn't even know about it until 90 miles into the race, though. So it's like there's like this whole element of like the sport that I had no exposure to, no idea about, that like had to be told to me, well into the race itself. That was actually an aspect of it. So yeah, there's a lot of like uncertainty about the sport, even within it. And then,
did you break the world record at that race?
Yeah, I broke a world record that I didn't know existed when I started the race. So
did you? You only found out about it at mile 90. Did you leave some in the tank up until mile 90? Like, do you think you could have gone faster if you would have known that early on?
I actually think it might have worked in my favor because my main goal was still try to break the American record for 100 miles. So I was on pace for that. And I think at mile 90, I was on pace for like 11:52 or something like that. And the current American record was like 11:59. And the race director came up to me and said, I remember like right before he came up to me, I remember thinking, because you can see these lap splits every 400 meters. So I knew exactly like where I was at, what my projection was. And I remember thinking like, I can't go a second per lap faster, but I can go this pace for the rest of the race. And that would have gotten me like, something in the low 1150s. I think like 11:52.
What pace was that?
That would have been like something about, I was on pace for like a 7:06 or something like that at that point. But then when he came and told me there's a 12-hour world record that you're on pace for, so don't let off. And he also told me because they were assuming I was going to hit 100 miles before I got to 12 hours. So he's like, when you hit 100 miles, don't stop, keep going, because you're going to have time left to add to that 12-hour, or you can add distance between when you hit 100 miles and however far you go between that and 12 hours. Because I would have just stopped at 100 miles otherwise, because I had no clue the 12-hour record even existed. And so that kind of lit a fire under me, because now all of a sudden I had been thinking about chasing this 100-mile thing, and you get mental fatigue from thinking the same thing all day long. Now all of a sudden there's this other thing there too. So I actually ended up speeding up like something like 4 seconds per lap for like basically the remainder of that race, because he gave me that information. Because before that, I was convinced I wasn't going a second per lap faster in my mind. And I ended up running 11:47 versus what I was projected to get to at that point in time. And that one I think was like ended up being 7:04 pace for 100 miles. And then I went 101.7 miles for 12 hours, which at the time was the world record for that. And that sort of like launched me into this like, all right, I want to find really fast venues and see how fast I can actually run 100 miles. And then, it took me like almost 6 years, but I got it down to 11:19 and then 104.8 for 12 hours. But that was kind of like a defining piece of like ultra running for me, was just kind of like learning that new area that I hardly knew existed before.
At what point in a race like that does it get hard for you?
It depends. I would say like there's a couple pinch points. I would say there's a cognitive pinch point around 30 to 40 miles usually, where I'm getting up to the duration of where I would typically do a single long run. And now it's like, your mind kind of goes back to like those 2 or 3 months prior where that's usually where you stop. And you got to kind of get past that point and be like, okay, no, today we're going much further. And you have to fight this battle of not thinking about the entirety of it at that point, because you just don't want to try to wrap your head around 60, 70 miles at that point. You want to be thinking about what the next stage is. So that part is always like a little bit of a mental hurdle to get over. Sometimes 50 miles can be difficult just because like you can start running the thought experiment of, okay, that was too hard to do twice. And you don't want to be thinking of it like that. So that can be a challenge. If I overshoot something or make a mistake where I'm not having the best day, 70 to 80 is a really tough spot physically, where I'm sure it's some interplay of mental, physical, and probably nutrition and hydration all kind of culminating together. But you just get to this point where you're just like, I can't go any faster. And, that can like degrade pretty badly if you keep letting it kind of slow down and then say again, I can't go faster. And then before you know it, you're running a couple minutes per mile slower than your average pace and you're really grinding it out. So I've had a few like that too, where it gets really hard there. But when they go well, you almost can feel better during those phases too. Like you see them as like benchmarks that you checked off, and then you look at it and you're like, okay, I actually feel better than average here. I feel the way I should feel right here. And then that gives you kind of positive momentum. So it gets really hard to kind of tease out what is like, how much of that is mental, how much that's physical, how much of that is influenced by just hitting your fueling right, your hydration right, caffeine at the right time, so your mental state is in the right spot at the right time and things like that. But yeah, those would be kind of like the key spots though, from my experience.
There are such levels to just like the amazing ability of the human body.
Yeah.
The human performance, man. Like, as I think about running 100 miles at that pace, it is like unfathomable to me. So as you're explaining that, I'm thinking, like, for you as this elite athlete who has conquered amazing goals, what is the most impressive physical feat you've watched someone else accomplish?
Oh, that's a great question. There's a few that stand out. I would say, if we're looking a little more recently, Megan Eckert ran, was it 603 miles in 6 days? Broke the women's world record for 6 days by, I think, 42 miles or something like that. These multi-day things are just fascinating to me because, for one, I haven't done one yet. So it's still kind of this like unknown territory.
Do you want to?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to get into it. I've dove into the history of it. Have you looked into the history of multi-day? Oh my God.
No.
Oh, yeah. See, this was another blind spot I had too for a while, where the ultra running has like this really deep history, dates back to like the 1700s. And it got super popular in the late 1800s, early 1900s, where they were packing what was Madison Square Garden at the time, just full of spectators. Like celebrities would go to the watch, people would be betting, drinking, just having a good time partying, watching these people running around this little loop for 6 days. And the 6-day thing came up because it was the longest duration they could have without infringing on Sunday. So It's like, okay, we'll do our 6 days, then everyone's got to go to church. So it's kind of funny how these like numbers come to be. But the 6-day event was like very popular. It was like the equivalent of your major sports nowadays, where people were paying attention to these characters to the same degree we would be like our NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball players are today. Sport in general was different back then, but they would be, from a prize money standpoint, they'd be making like, what was it? I'm trying to look. There's a guy, Davy Crockett, who he's done like, I think, a dozen books now on the history of ultramarathoning and stuff like that. And he goes, I had him on the podcast a while back, and he goes into the weeds with this stuff. But yeah, they were making like millions of dollars in today's standard just running ultramarathons. It's like, so it started to die off though in like the 1920s, mainly I think because of the bike. The bike got invented, and now all of a sudden it was like, well, we could watch these people slog around this track at 4 miles per hour, or we could watch these people on these bikes who are going to more likely crash than not at some point and are going 20 miles per hour. So that sort of like ate into the popularity of it. And then there was a lot of competition amongst like the theater And I think some of the religious organizations of just like, these things turned out to be like, they were, you think ultra running today seems like this relatively wholesome, like, I mean, it's masochistic, but it's all like self-inflicted stuff. Whereas like back then it was like poisoning your competition. Like people are at these things getting drunk and like just doing crazy stuff.
And truly violent.
Right. Yeah. So it was it was maybe a little more frowned upon by some areas of society too. So they got a lot of pressure from like theater, from religious organizations and stuff like that as well, that I think kind of, it was all kind of economy based stuff where you do these like 6-day events and people are going to go to one thing or another. So you're in competition to some degree with them. And, that and the bike and everything kind of, it like whittled down to basically nothing now. Cause I mean, you don't hear about 6-day events hardly as much anymore. They're starting to get a little more popular now, but to the degree they used to be like the premier event, and not just ultra running, but in sport in general, is pretty mind boggling. So like, just diving into the history of that stuff has gotten me interested in it. So I kind of want to try to do one at some point. I have a little bit of like a conflicting goals in my head where it's like, I'm 39 now. So I probably have a few years left where I could realistically still PR in the 100 mile before it's like, okay, you've done that enough. You've taken enough swings. You're not going to get any faster at this point. What your time was is focus on something different. And then, so part of me is like, don't give up too much of that last bit of time I probably have to maximize my 100 mile performance before getting into stuff that's probably definitely less speed dependent, and that I could argue that I could be just as good at in my mid 40s, late 40s as I would be in, my age now. So part of me is just trying to be patient with it too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in the sport of ultra running that is kind of transforming or revolutionizing performance? Like one of the things we were talking about earlier is like this new high carb approach that some of these athletes are taking. Is there something else that athletes are incorporating or using, whether like nutrition wise, supplementation, training protocols, that's revolutionizing the sport that you're seeing?
Yeah. There's so much, because like when the sport started to grow and continues to grow, we just knew so little about optimization. So there's like all those things you mentioned have been all improving. You see now like Western States ends up becoming a pretty good spot to watch because it's so high stakes for like athletes, coaches, brands that
I paced Sally.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So you've been out there. Yeah.
Amazing experience.
Mm-hmm. And every year it just like ratchets up, in terms of like how much you see at like that at the Forest Hill aid station, that one at 100K, where you start pacing and like, yeah. So like, I would say like things like heat training, proper cooling strategies during events, even if heat's not an apparent, like at Western States, it's obvious you got to manage it because it could be 100 degrees in the canyons. But if you're doing a race that's 70, 75 degrees, heat management can be used effectively, because ideally you'd be running in something cooler than that. So that's something I think that has moved the needle quite a bit. And that's like intra-race strategy, as well as like maybe I should do some runs in heat for 60 to 90 minutes or hop in a sauna for 30 minutes after my training session to try to like get the benefits from that. Another thing I think we're seeing with just the professionalization of the sport is people are putting themselves in positions to be more successful on the courses they're racing. So more people that are getting out on like Leadville course a month or two in advance, or moving out to Chamonix to train on Ultra Trail Mont Blanc course prior to that race itself, or, training specifics to the course itself have, I think, moved the needle a lot on performance. Just training theory in general too, where I think when I started the sport, it was just a lot of people running a lot. And then you kind of you still see some of this. I think like Courtney DeWalter and Meg Eckert, the person I was telling you just now who broke the world record for 6, they seem to have pretty low key. They're training a lot, but it's not like, all right, I got this calendar and on Tuesdays I'm doing VO2 max, on Thursdays I'm hitting threshold intervals, and then long. They're going out and running a ton, and then when they feel good, they run fast. Is kind of their mold. But most people are getting a lot more specific with that, and they're training to peak. They're training in a way that would be, I'm going to make myself a really, really good runner, and then I'm going to use the final space of this training plan to really maximize my potential for the thing I'm actually doing. So that might look like 24 weeks out, I spent 16 weeks just becoming a really, really good runner, hitting kind of those key improvement points at aerobic threshold, lactate threshold, VO2 max, leveraging that fitness into the specifics they're going to use on race day, and then putting in a ton of work specific to that. So on race day, they're ready for the specifics of it, all while practicing the fueling and hydration that they're going to do, getting tests so they actually know, like, I lose this amount of electrolytes per liter of sweat versus somebody else, getting an idea of like how much fluid can I process per hour, or how much am I going to lose at different temperatures. They're just getting a little more precise versus a lot more guesswork, trial and error with that sort of thing, are moving the needle quite a bit. And then strategy. I think one of the bigger movers we'll see coming up that hasn't hit hard enough yet is proper pacing. I still think that we get out a little too fast in some of these races. And right now it sort of incentivizes that because we have some really fast runners in the sport now. And it just takes one person to go out, and then it's like pulls everyone out a little bit. And then I think you have a scenario where you get 10, say you get 10 guys who have the skill set to win a race. If they all go out a little aggressive, you're going to get 2 or 3 of them that are probably going to have their best day, and they're going to run a really, really fast time. But I think to get to that, we remove a slight amount of optimization by staying like maybe within a couple percentage points of like an even split. I think we're probably seeing a little further outside of that towards positive split that could improve times a little bit on some of the, it gets hard because like these courses are varied in terrain and weather patterns change and things. So it's not it's not as exact as like when I get on the track at the Pettit Center where temperature's 55 degrees all day, the loop doesn't change, the lighting doesn't change. That you can really see the pace variance from 1 mile to the next cleanly. But I think pacing is going to be another thing that gets better or has been getting maybe a little better, but has a good chance to make some noticeable improvements if it continues to get better. Although I think when you get into the multi-day stuff, now that sort of shifts a little bit because now pacing has a component of sleep variable in this. And this, I think we're seeing in these last man standing races, which is another topic I wanted to talk to you about.
I was just trying to bring it up.
This is a perfect transition.
Do you have interest in a last man standing race?
Absolutely. So I had
you should come do ours next year.
Yeah, I think I wanna. I think I'm gonna sign up for it if it works out. I think that would be a fun one to do.
We're gonna move it to April of next year.
Okay, cool. So a little better weather.
It should be a little cooler.
Yeah.
Which was
that might not be good though. Then it's longer.
It should be longer. You know, it's interesting. Chad Wright came out and did it earlier this year.
Yeah.
And he showed up and he came over when we were talking. And Chad showed up in a long sleeve shirt. He had a big hat on that was covering his neck.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Hey, Nick, you see all these people on here? You got these guys over here, shirtless. This guy, sleeveless shirt. Everyone's exposed."
Yeah.
He's like, "This heat's gonna crush people," which it did. So just like Chad was smart enough and he had the experience to know that for him to be less affected by the heat, especially, I mean, you're Central Texas, late May, very little like tree coverage.
Mm-hmm.
He was wearing long sleeve shirts and hats that covered majority of his head and body
mm-hmm.
to protect himself from the heat and the sun.
Yeah.
Which is a great strategy. But those style of races are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see you throw down at ours.
Yeah, I got really curious about it because I had Phil Gore on just recently, I think actually just last week, and he just broke the world record, 119 yards, which is just one lap under 5 days. And I had Sam Harvey on, who I think he was out crewing at your event.
He was crewing Kendall.
Yeah. So he came on prior to that and was because he was part of that group that really, I think, put the last man standing stuff on the map a little bit within the ultra community. Because Phil Gore, Sam Harvey, and Harvey Lewis, I think there was one other person in that group, blanking on who it was, but they just threw down and like I think they all went past the prior world record and people were just mind boggled by it. So I'm like, I got to learn more about this because my first thought with these things was like the cool thing about it is it kind of feels like at first glance it takes the speed component out where you could be the fastest guy on. I mean, your event maybe showed this a little bit. You got like, I mean, Mitch did great, obviously, but he didn't win, and Mitch was probably the fastest runner in that group, I would imagine.
Yeah, easily.
So it's like Mitch's 2:16 marathon ability doesn't necessarily do him any favors in the sense that he doesn't need to be that fast to finish the loop with plenty of time to spare. So my first thought was like, okay, well, you could just be a grinder and do like 50, 55 minutes. And then you get someone who could just go at a similar intensity and finish in 40, 45 minutes. Doesn't really do him a whole lot of favors. But then after talking to Sam Harvey and Phil Gore, they were like, no, here's the thing. Like, this becomes like, that was the original theory. And that was kind of where we got to some early milestones. But then when we really pushed it beyond and got to like day 4 and where he had it up to where when he finished, you know, you have to, the crazy thing about these is you need 2 people, right? Or because it ends as soon as the second to last guy drops out. So Phil was telling me he thought he could go for a whole nother day when Sam dropped out at Dead Cow Gully a few weeks ago. And he said the reason why is because the way he sets his up is he does slow laps during the day. So like 50, 55 minutes. So he still has time to eat, get his stuff, foot care, make sure there's nothing that's going to, you know, sabotage him that way. But then at night, he goes faster. He goes like 40 minutes or quicker and then banks 10, 15 minutes naps each lap. So then every night he's getting like a couple hours of sleep in net over the course of that time. And he's like, that really adds up when you get into days 3, 4 and up next to 5. And he's like, that's what's, I think, really going to let us get into some of those really longer days that we'll end up seeing eventually with more competitive pressure and more event opportunities and things like that. So I found that really interesting, and that kind of brings a little bit more of the speed component back into it too, because if you're going to commit to ripping 40, 35-minute laps consistently on day 3 overnight, you probably got to have at least a decent amount of speed. You can't be just a complete slogger that can just go forever. But it does kind of blend that a little bit still too. It doesn't take, you know, there's less of a speed component for it, but there's also this sleep deprivation side of it. The other thing Phil shared with me is his foot care routine, where he starts out with every 12 hours, he does a full foot bath just to make sure there's no extra little sand in there and things like that. And then he titrates that down to 8 hours as he goes on, to the degree where after his most recent one, his feet were like pretty much the same condition as they were when he started. So he's like, I identified that as a spot that was going to potentially pull me out of the race if I don't take care of it. So I made sure I take care of it. And yeah, so it's just, there's so many moving parts.
Yeah. It was so interesting to witness. Cause like you said, you need 2 runners to really push that race.
Yeah.
And I think Mitch dropped out at, I want to say hour 30 maybe. And it went an additional 26 hours after Mitch dropped out, just between 2 runners, Kendall and Kim. And those guys kept pushing each other. I mean, they would toe the line every hour on the hour, looking just as fresh. And we were fully prepared for that race to go a whole nother day. But you could tell because Sam Harvey was Kendall's coach, there was a lot of strategy built into their plan. So as soon as Kendall would come across the start-finish line, I can't remember exactly when he was typically coming in, maybe 50 minutes per loop throughout the night, they would pull this air mattress up to the start-finish line.
Yeah.
And he would literally cross the line, face plant down into the air mattress. They'd put earplugs in his ears. They'd cover his eyes up. They'd let him sleep for 5 minutes. He'd wake up. They'd force feed food into his mouth and then send him out on another loop. So there was a really strong sleep strategy built into Kendall's plan.
Yeah.
And then Kim didn't necessarily have that built in. His family was crewing him. He actually fell asleep out on the course.
I was wondering about that, if that would be a strategy, if you don't get in time to take a nap, if you just say, all right, I guess you probably need some sort of alarm to wake you up, but you could take a nap you just got to start, right? You don't have to be moving the same pace the whole way.
Yeah, he literally out on the course, I can't remember what hour it was deep into the race. He sat down for 1 second and fell asleep. And then he barely made it across the start-finish line for that next loop. He was sprinting in to get across. But those guys, like, there's so many factors, as you know, like your stomach has to hold up over the course of that race, especially we had 96, 97, 98 degree days. It was hot. So the heat was beating down on them, staying on top of hydration and sodium balance, and then foot care. Like for me personally, my feet are always the first to go. I have soft feet.
Yeah.
they're always wrecked. Like I haven't done an ultra in years, and my toes are still
wrecked from it.
Still wrecked from my last ultra in 2023. Like they just don't. They're
permanently
inhealable
done.
at this point. But there's so many factors. I mean, you're just problem solving the entire way through a multi-day effort.
Mm-hmm.
But watching those guys just toe the line hour after hour after hour, it was insane to watch and witness. And then ultimately, what ended that race was this huge storm that came in through Central Texas and just completely crushed our course, our tents, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it ended fast.
Just a quick reminder that Element Electrolytes is my go-to electrolyte source. They are offering a free sample pack with purchase for all HPO listeners at drinklmnt.com/HPO. They also just launched a new flavor, lemonade. Check it out risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee. Also, check out my full description of how I use Element at the end of the episode. Delta G Ketones is my go-to exogenous ketone source. You can get 20% off at deltagketones.com when you use promo code BITTER20. Currents is a product I use pre-workout and during events to help with blood flow, recovery, and fat oxidation. Check out CurrensUSA.com to see the 40-plus studies they have and use promo code BITTER20DEAL for 20% off your first purchase. Maui Nui venison is one of my favorite protein sources. The reason, they have balanced an invasive species, the axis deer, that is devastating to the Maui habitat if not kept in check, all while providing some of the most nutrient-dense meat source you will find. Consider letting them know that you heard of them from me by taking a look at their website at mauinuivenison.com/bitter.
Yeah, there was like biblical weather. I remember that worked for it because it almost seems wrong, like in the sense that it would be a mismatch. You got these events that last forever. You have a platform that incentivizes short form. So, but then with the nature of that event where it's like people kind of want to see the start and the finish of each lap and then be held in suspense or be fed some like cool, interesting, quick clip stories along the way. And you guys had it set up so perfect where you went live at the start, you went live at the finish. And so we got to see that kind of like who's going to make it in, who's going to start, go out. And then in between those laps, there'd be clips and stories and things popping up from the BPN account as well as some of the participants of just random stuff that happened in between in the laps. So you sort of got that whole picture in short form version where there was like, I think there was like 30,000 people viewing one of the lives on on the BPN Instagram page at one point. So it was like right up there with some of the top media viewership stuff that we see at like Western States, and Cocodona is another one that's blown up recently from a media standpoint. UTMB is probably still the biggest, but yeah, it was like right up there.
I knew it was going to be big as we were preparing for it, just because we put a lot of planning and preparation in this race this year.
Mm-hmm.
It was our first year having the ranch. We invested a lot of time and resources into building out the ranch and the course and really refining it and getting it set up. But if you would have asked me before the race started, I would have said the biggest return on that whole race for us from a company perspective and media was going to be the doc that we're launching September 5th.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that the race would go viral while it was happening. Like we weren't prepared for that.
Yeah.
We didn't think so many people would tune in. I mean, I was getting sent photos from people I haven't talked to for a decade, saying that we're having a watch party at our house tonight. Where people invited friends over, ordered pizza, and put it on their TV to watch the race. And we were documenting the whole race through, but we actually weren't planning on doing a live stream.
Mm-hmm.
But as we launched the race and it started becoming more popular, I mean, we gained 50,000 Instagram followers in 72 hours.
Yeah.
All these people were begging for live streams. So Trey Freeman, who runs communication and social for BPN, he was just running around on the phone on Instagram Live because it was a pivot that we just decided to implement during the race. And tens of thousands of people were tuning in. So it was a huge win for the brand. It was, I would argue, the first time we ever went viral with any sort of marketing event or campaign or event. But what's so awesome about going viral in this sense is that like we went viral for something that's so closely tied to our brand.
Mm-hmm.
Going More is our tagline. The race was called Going More. The last man standing race is the definition of going one more. Yeah. So it was like very closely aligned with our mission and what we're about. But it made us really think about next year. Like, how do we do this even better? How do we do this? How do we create the same sort of level of interest and impact and respect the sport, respect the style of race that it is, but do it bigger and larger?
Yeah.
I've been talking to Harvey Lewis, and I'm like, we're trying to get him out for next year's race. So I think the level of athletes that are there next year, and I'd love for you to be there. I think this race is potentially going to break records.
Yeah, I think I have to be there now.
Yes.
I can't say no. It's just one of those races.
Dude, I would love if you were there.
Okay, I'll soft commit right now.
It's in April.
April, okay.
Yeah,
that should work.
And it's going to be a big one.
Yeah, it'll be too fun to not be part of. I'll regret not doing it, I think. It's got to be one of those situations. So, cool, man. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the other thing I thought that was really interesting about that particular event too was it goes kind of back to what we were talking about before, where, when you were talking about you did Leadville and then, people got interested in Leadville that maybe wouldn't otherwise. I'd put like Cam Hanes in the same department here, where it's like he brought in like this huge group of people from like the hunting community into ultra running that maybe weren't as invested into it as like a parallel to what they were doing. I mean, I still get people that sign up for coaching, and I'll have on the intake form, it'll be like, oh, like, what race do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? And I'll get them. They'll be like, got into Leadville, learned about it from Nick Bear. And this is like, what year was it you did Leadville? Like
2021.
21. Yeah. So 4 years ago. And that's still like feeding people into that event. So, I mean, and to kind of connect it with the BPN Last Man Standing was like, that got such a media attention within the sport. I think it caught people by surprise because like the more traditional ultra running venues that, and then the media outlets that typically cover them, they weren't involved in it at all. So it's like, it was just like, how did it get that big? And I think they're like, I remember there was conversations around, are we having like, is the sport going in like a bunch of different directions where it's not like there's really no like uniform, like this is where we go to get our ultra news or something like that. Not that it's ever really had that level of uniformity, but it's gotten more consolidated, I would say, over the years. Whereas this was like a whole new picture where no one expected it to happen. Whereas usually now, like if a thing's going to have a big live stream, you kind of see it bubbling up in the weeks beforehand to the degree that like people are getting ready to watch it and stuff like this. This one was like a new cast of characters, right? Like a lot of the people at that Last Man Standing, they weren't your like, oh, they were 7th at Western States or 5th at UTMB, right, or at Big's Backyard or something like that. So it was like a different group of participants, and then like a different media outlet too, just making a huge splash with a relatively new event too, because the Last Man Standing stuff hasn't been around for that terribly long just in general. So it's just kind of shows like how much opportunity there is within like the vast space that is ultra running to like grow something, build something, promote something, and then share it with people to the degree where like tons of people find out about something that there'll be people now that know of ultra running because of BPN and Last Man Standing.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago, that wouldn't even been possible, because Last Man Standings weren't even happening. And like, how big was BPN 10 years ago compared to today? Probably not big enough to like draw people into ultra running anyway.
Tiny.
But yeah.
Well, I came across the Last Man Standing style race actually from Jesse Itzler years ago. And I watched him. He signed up for and did the Last Man Standing in Pineland Farms, Maine.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, I thought that was the only Last Man Standing race.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2023, I signed up for the Pineland Farms Last Man Standing race.
Yeah.
Because I thought, again, that was the only Last Man Standing race. I didn't know it was like this thing across the world.
Right, yeah.
So I signed up. I ran that. I went 100 miles. And it was just as equally hard as it was mentally hard.
Mm-hmm.
It was a completely different experience of race compared to Leadville 100 and then Rocky Raccoon. You know, I did Rocky Raccoon. I worked with you. You
Yeah,
coached me
yeah.
through that. But Last Man Standing in Pineland Farms, Maine, that was transformational for me. Like I fell in love with it because it was so closely tied, like I said, to Go One More.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I want to be very clear about is, like, you know, when we host these races, or even when we show up to races and competitions, we never want to make it the BPN show or even like the Nick Bear show. We want to truly respect and honor the competition, the race. So when we hosted the Go One More Ultra in May, our team worked really hard to make sure that we're going to honor and respect the race and the style and the runners and everything throughout that. And I'd say we were very successful at that. My fear sometimes is when we host these races or we bring attention to these styles of races or competitions, as other brands or companies see that success, they try to replicate it, but they don't honor and respect the style and the sport as it is. They turn it into their thing just to monetize.
Yeah.
That's something we're always very careful about.
No, that's a good point. Cause I mean, I watched basically the whole thing when I was awake, and there wasn't really any advertising. I mean, it was on the BPN Instagram page, but it wasn't like after every clip, get your gel, there was none of that. So like
a lot of brands have hit us up post race to sponsor next year's race.
Oh, really? Yeah. So they want in.
They want in, but we want to keep it very raw, real, disruptive.
Yeah.
Honor and respect the race as it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's a cool setup. I think it's now on people's calendars. I'm sure that beforehand probably didn't know about it. So that's really cool. It's kind of got a similar feel to like the Speed Project, where it's one of those things where like it kind of like popped up out of nowhere, and then now it's got like a ton of momentum behind it, but it's still trying to kind of keep the same like energy it originally had of kind of no rules. We'll tell you when we're going to launch it, when we tell you, and all that sort of stuff.
Speed Project was fun. I did that one in 2023, I believe it was. And that was a great experience.
Yeah.
But again, like super disruptive, starts at the same. Have you done it before?
I did the year before you, I think, 22, I think. Yeah.
It's a wild experience.
It is.
Just like the energy at the Santa Monica Pier.
And
they're yelling that chant.
Yeah.
And cops are rolling in, trying to break it apart. And everyone just disperses in a million different directions.
Yeah.
That was such an energetic experience.
Like
those are the moments that I live for. You know, if we look at like races in general, they're kind of boring, right? Like they start really high, and then you settle in, you realize it's gonna be a long process, and then you just kind of work through the journey. But there's always these highs. Like one of the greatest highs I've ever had an experience from a race, when I towed the line at the California International Marathon in 2023. You know, it's early in the morning, and that's a point-to-point race, so they bust you out to the start line. And I was standing at the starting line, just thinking about the next 26.2 miles, in every mile, in my pacing strategy, in my fueling strategy, and just controlling my heart rate. And I was standing at the starting line, shaking with so much energy and so focused. I didn't see anyone to the left of me, to the right of me, behind me, in front of me. I didn't hear anything. It was just like this mute buzz in my ear. And that amount of intentionality and focus and clarity, you just can't create out of nowhere. It has to be built. And when you're prepared for something and you go into it, you're about to enter it. It's like this thing that you only get to experience so many times, and it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you hit it on the head. I think the other interesting thing with the Speed Project is just, for me, that was the first event I did that wasn't like, all right, you start and you keep going and you really don't stop other than for maybe like a brief aid station or bathroom break or something like that, where we had it set up where we had two groups of three, and we would leapfrog each other. So you'd have like these like 2, sometimes almost 3-hour breaks while the other group was on route. So it's like you could sleep and you could stay hydrated and you could stay fueled. So we got to that last like 20-mile stretch where it's like as a gradual downhill on the roads. and we're just ripping so fast. I was like, man, how are we still running this fast after all of that? You'd think there'd be a more attrition than what there was. But with just the nature of how that thing is set up and the incentives of getting like how to structure the relay setup and things like that, that's a really cool event too.
Yeah, we were doing 1 mile segments that last like 20 plus miles.
Yep.
Along the road, and we were holding like 6 minute per mile pace.
Yeah.
Just cooking into Vegas. We had a really interesting experience at the Speed Project where we planned to get onto the power line route off course to save some mileage. But we had to get on that route earlier than we expected because there was a detour on that highway.
Oh, yeah.
So we got on power lines maybe like 15 to 20 miles prior to planning, and the map and the route didn't reflect where we were heading. We got super lost.
Oh, yeah.
Super lost in the middle of the night. Finally got back on course, and it was a dumpster fire. But got back on course, got through it. So it was a journey for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious how you guys strategized it. I know like when I did it, I just got lucky. It was like I got asked, Ultra Footwear was launching a shoe that they wanted to do a bunch of promo stuff with. And they're like, hey, you want to do the Speed Project? We're putting a team together. I'm like, sure, why not? So they did like all the planning and everything. I just had to show up and run. And they hired somebody to go out there like well in advance to kind of, well, this person already had a route because she was associated with the event. So she kind of knew like generally the fastest route that you could go through the power line. But then it got so complex to the degree where she'd go out there the weeks leading up to look at which spots on the power line have the least amount of ATV tracking, because those ATVs get out there and they create almost like wakes on the, or like, I guess like they'd be kind of like if you're skiing, like moguls. Yeah. And you got to take a Jeep through there in order to relay your runners. So it's like, if you find, well, and you got to run over it too. So it's like, you want to cut the course as short as possible, but you also want to avoid the harshest terrain if you can. So some of it was like literally trying to figure out which one of these routes is going to be the least trafficked by the ATV vehicles.
Yeah.
Weeks leading into the race. It's just like, man, that's like such a level of like logistical planning that goes on top of like some of the shoe brands are probably the big ones that put together the teams that are doing that sort of thing.
Oh, it's just as much a logistical operation as it is a race. So we had someone who knew the race or had done the race prior to, that was part of our team on our media side. So they helped us build out the skeleton of the route we were going to take. But then it ended up being my responsibility, which wasn't the initial plan, but once we started the race, it kind of just fell into my lap.
Yeah.
That I was going to guide the runners and I was going to guide the RVs and the vehicles turn by turn, and we were heading. So I'd go run my segment, come back in, sit down in a chair, pull out the map, and then pull up like Strava. And I was reflecting where we were at based off of where we were trying to get to. So I really didn't sleep at all because I was either navigating and directing or running, which ended up being a lot. Yeah,
that is a lot. Because I remember I got really motion sick on one of the power line segments overnight, where it was like I was just like when we finished that segment, I was just like, man, I just cost us a ton of time just like stumbling around out there. And I just like passed out for like 2 hours, maybe even a little longer than that, and woke up and was like totally reset and was perfectly fine from there on forward. But without that, I don't know like what my state of performance would have been like. So yeah, if you're not able to sleep or you have another job on side of it, then you got a little bit of extra going for you.
That's what I'm finding for me as an athlete, because I'm not a professional athlete, and being an athlete isn't necessarily my main job, but I could argue that's part of my job. I love endurance training. I love endurance races and competitions. But for me, it's not trying to, and has never been, trying to be the best triathlete possible, or trying to be the best marathoner possible, or trying to be the best ultra runner possible. But it's this passion I have of endurance training, and then learning how I can apply it to different experiences. If I look at the last 2018 to last 8 years of my life, I've got to experience ultras in the Rocky Mountains. I've got to experience triathlons and Ironmans in Mexico, and then in Florida, and then marathons, and it's taken me to different places. Speed projects, a clear example.
Yeah.
Like just these different experiences that you can apply your fitness to that can be both physically, mentally, and emotionally challenging and taxing. And, the speed project's a really good example where when I did the speed project, I was 6 years removed from the military. I transitioned out of the Army in 2017, but being back in that speed project kind of environment, you're with a team, I'm working on a map, I'm trying to move an element across a certain distance to get to a certain objective. It took me back to when I was in the Army leading a platoon. And I only could have experienced that again through endurance training in the sport and the competition. So it's taken me to different places and experiences that I would have never been able to if I wanted to have started running seriously in 2018.
Yeah. No, that's exactly my experience too with it. It's just like, I think back now, it's just like when I first got in the sport and you would like travel internationally for a race or something like that, and you'd take it seriously, do the sightseeing and all that stuff. And it was like, it's one of those things where it was fun and motivating at the time, but it's even more fun and motivating looking back at it now and thinking, wow, I got to do that because of this. Because I chose to like focus on ultra marathons of all things. But yeah, the team aspect thing too is interesting. And I wonder if that will have any sort of growth. There's been attempts at it in the past that haven't really panned out. But like for me, I've been on the Team USA's 100K World Championship team 3 times, and it's just nothing like it. It's like you get all the like interesting stuff about running an ultra marathon, but you have this extra thing of like, okay, there's people that are also depending on me staying on track, and my performance is impacting them too. And you get that extra thing similar with the speed project where, I want to slow down right now, but like I just got to get this up to this next person because they're counting on me getting there. And I just wonder like, I wonder how the sport would like deliver that sort of experience at a broader scale. Cause it's like only so many people are going to get on world championship teams or get into the speed project and be able to kind of experience those things. You'd think there's maybe an opportunity within the sport to try to share that side of the experience with more people.
Do you do much training with other people, or is it typically solo?
It's a lot of solo, but I notice that if I do that for too long, I start craving some company when I'm running and things like that. So then I'll like jump in with a group and run for a bit and stuff like that. So there's a balance there. I think, I ran in college, in high school, and that was like everything with a team. And I like that for periods of time, but I always did like when summer would come up and then, okay, I have this block of time where now I can train on my own, and you can just really focus on not doing what the group's doing, but doing what you need for a little bit of time. But I think there's probably a good, like maybe for me, like an 80-20 balance of solo training to like training with someone else or with a group.
Yeah. Most of my training is done solo. If I'm in a big training block, I have found like on Wednesdays, it's when I do my speed work. It's either tempo or critical velocity on the track. I'll occasionally go train with Jeff Cunningham's crew.
Sure.
And all of those runners are so much faster than me. Mm-hmm. And I will be cooked after one of those workouts, but it pushes me significantly. And that's where I really started learning how to become faster. But my most successful marathon prep ever, every workout, every run was done solo. Mm-hmm. That was when we were living in Nashville for the California International Marathon. Even my speed workouts, like my track days, weren't done on a track. It was done on a road. Mm-hmm. You just find an 800-meter segment and you go back and forth 10 times.
Yeah.
So that's how I trained for that race. But for me, I personally enjoy training solo. That's where I'm doing a lot of my thinking. It's where I get a lot of clarity into my thought and planning for the day. And that's like my me time for the day too.
Yeah. Well, and you got a wife, kids, and how many employees does BPN have now? Like you're dealing with, I shouldn't say dealing, but you're engaging with people probably nonstop. So like when you do train, I bet that probably feels a little bit like, all right, this is a chance just to kind of like quiet all of that for a moment of time.
I mean, I'm naturally an introvert too.
Mm-hmm. So you need it then.
I recharge in my alone time. Mm-hmm. We were just on family vacation 2 weeks ago, and it was my wife's side of the family and some of my side of the family. And for a week, it was no alone time, which was a great realization for me for me to be the best version of me possible, I need a little just me time.
Yeah.
Because that's where I recharge. And for some people, it's the opposite. Like some people recharge as an extrovert with others in company.
Yeah.
But for me, like, especially engaging with people on calls and meetings all the time at work, like if I don't get that just me alone time, which is typically when I'm training, it puts me into a different energy headspace that isn't the best version of me.
Yeah. It is interesting because I would say, like, Nicole and I talk about this all the time because we both have similar tendencies, I think, in terms of how much like person, like group atmospheres we want. Like what are like our total, like if you could put a number on it, like what percentage of time do you want to be spending with groups versus by yourself? We're pretty close in that. But for me, it's like I could go like a week or two just total hermit monk mode, and then like all of a sudden spend like 3 days with a big group of people and be like just totally satisfied with that. Whereas she's kind of more like, all right, like I can grind for like a day, maybe a 2 by myself, but then I need like a brief exposure point to a group of people for like a couple hours. Then I want to go back. So she kind of needs like smaller, more frequent inputs, and I can do like longer stretches and then bigger boluses of it. And it's always kind of fun to just kind of find the balance between two people when you have like those similarities and those differences in that side of things. But it's interesting.
I was just listening to a podcast about this. I'm curious your thoughts. Because there's differences between like spending time with a community that is your people. You know them, you're familiar with them. And then there's, the separate case study of just spending time with anyone, which could be a group of people who you aren't super familiar with, but it's just a social interaction that provides you energy.
Yeah.
Have you found that it's either one or the other? Is it just being around people or your people?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I think where my personality ends up going with that is if it's someone I really know well and I already have like a good amount of like just banked experience of like this is what this is going to be like, then I think I don't necessarily want a shorter period of time with them, but I can get what I need out of it in a shorter period of time. Whereas if it's a group of people where I'm unfamiliar, I sort of warm up. And then like I can spend a lot of time with them, but it's like I'm going to get more and more excited about the experience. I'm going to be more happy that I decided to do it the further into it I get.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So like, yeah, that's probably the biggest difference between the two. So to some degree, I like know that about myself. So it's like if it's an environment where I'm like less aware of the group, then I kind of almost say, okay, you need to put yourself in this full scale versus just trying to like dip your toe in and then leave, because the fun part is going to be once you've kind of gotten comfortable in there, and that's just going to take a little bit more time.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm similar in a sense. I enjoy spending time with people when I have the ability to go like deep into conversation, whether it's someone I know very well or someone I'm just meeting for the first time.
Yeah.
I typically like go not like deep, meaningful conversation, but I want to talk about some meaty stuff.
Something fun. Yeah.
Something fun, like right away. And, one of my favorite things to do, me and my wife both, is go to dinner. We'll come into Austin and we'll go on a dinner with another couple or some friends. And, just spending time literally breaking bread and having a meal with people and just having a really great conversation that's not surface level, but it's exploring curiosities and interest and learning about people and their backgrounds and what they're doing for work and all these things. That fills my cup a lot. Like I leave feeling energized.
Yeah. That is fun stuff. I think too is like, I think some of it's too just like, putting yourself in a position where there's a routine there. And this is something that I think we probably could do a better job of, is just like, it sounds like you have that where like you go out on a certain night every week and just kind of say, okay, this is what we're doing. And then you've got that kind of built into the schedule.
Yeah, we have our weekly date night.
There you go. Yeah.
Date night. The kids are getting watched. And then we typically drive into Austin because it's where all the food spots we want to check out
Yeah.
are at. But it's time every week where like it's built in. We know we're gonna get some quality time together, and we try to do it weekly. But things change, especially when I'm gonna prep. It's probably not as fun for my wife because I'm extremely dialed.
Yeah.
So I'm more intentional with like where we're going to eat, and I'm not really having that glass of wine with dinner. Just very focused.
Sure. Yeah. The seasons probably impact that to some degree. So
For sure.
Cool. Anything interesting coming up with BPN? Any new stuff? Or I know April, I guess, is the big return of the last man standing.
Yeah, we're gonna host. So we have like 3 marquee events every year. So this fall we're gonna have a 50-mile overnight ultra on the ranch.
Okay. Yeah. You guys have done that one before, I think, right?
Yeah, we called it Survive the Night. And then in January, February, we are the nutrition sponsor of the Austin Half Marathon, Austin Full Marathon. So we'll do a huge activation around that. We were the main nutrition sponsor of the Austin Marathon last year, which we have a great partnership with that crew and that team. And then we'll host the Go More Ultra again in April. So we're going to launch the lottery early to mid-September. The Go More Ultra doc from 2025 that happened 2 months ago, that goes live September 5th. And a week after that, we're launching the lottery for that race. And then we'll kind of be ramping up in preparation for that. But this fall, I mean, what's interesting about our business, because we've changed so much since the origin in 2012. We started as like a bodybuilding, powerlifting supplement company. Over the years have evolved to now being strictly an endurance-focused brand.
Yeah.
We used to experience seasonality like most health supplement companies, January, February.
Oh, yeah.
But since shifting towards endurance and I'd say serving more of a committed, dedicated endurance consumer base, we don't experience seasonality in January, February like we used to. It's now summer and fall as people are ramping up for the main race season, or at least marathon season.
Yeah.
So the fall for us is really busy because sales increase and it's marathon season. So we're extremely active within the community, races, our athletes. So we're about to enter a pretty busy season.
Yeah. That is interesting how that shift would take place. So that's cool though. Yeah. The Austin Marathon I still haven't done the Austin Marathon despite being here for like 3 versions of it. So maybe I'll try to jump into that one too.
I'm not biased. It's my favorite race because it was my first marathon ever.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's just so much history behind that race and me falling in love with running and endurance training. But of all the races I've done, all the marathons, I'd say any type of race, the energy of the Austin Marathon is unmatched. I love it. I think it's incredible. But we're coming off a crazy busy summer. We moved into a new HQ. So that was a big project. We had the Ultra. We launched a new product called G1M Sport Plus. And then working on this doc. And it was a crazy summer. So now we're kind of settling in for kind of just like some normalcy after the madness of the summer of 2025. My book launched. So like, that on top of all those things. It was a crazy summer for us.
Yeah, it's hard to believe there's not 3 of you. Although there probably technically is with all the different just like partnerships you have with your employees and things of helping build stuff out. But
I have a solid team.
Yeah.
Like I'm extremely grateful for our team. We have 45-ish full-time employees at our HQ in Round Rock. But one of the things that I think has been a strength my entire life or most of my life is time management. But since getting married and then having kids, like my daughter she just turned 3 actually last week. My son turns 1 in August. So 2 young kids, and then running a business. I've had to learn how to become extremely efficient with my time.
Sure.
And I think that is one of my greatest strengths now is just learning how to be a manager of my time and being extremely consistent. But it's just these small refinements over time. I wish there were 3 of me.
Yeah.
I do, but unfortunately, there's just one right now. But I have a really solid team to be grateful for.
Yeah, you could have that swim workout done and this podcast recorded.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice. The swim, I'm actually like learning to enjoy. Not the pool, but open water.
Yeah,
because the Lifetime here in Austin, the one off Breaker,
yeah,
by the Domain. I don't know if you know this, but they have a quarry.
Oh yeah, yep, yeah, that's right.
Amazing. So it's just for swimmers and like paddle boarders. No one's ever in it. So I'll go do all my open water swimming there. It's the only Lifetime in, I believe, North America that has like a quarry or a lake as part of their membership. And I love doing open water swims, which is nice because obviously Ironman Arizona, it's a river swim. And it's to be cold enough so I can wear a wetsuit. Just pretty much float. But I enjoy open water swims. I can kind of just like my mind goes away, kind of like an easy morning run, and you forget you're swimming and you can just think, and I get lost in it. So I enjoy that. The pool, not so much.
Got to worry about hitting the wall and
flipping. I don't do flip turns. I have not mastered the flip turn, especially after taking 5 years off from swimming.
Yeah.
So I just touch the wall, go back down. Touch the wall, go back down. But I actually do enjoy like the open water swimming.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I had forgotten that they had that up there. When we first moved here, we were renting kind of up north of Austin, and we're members of Lifetime. And I think I went to that spot and I saw that. I didn't ever actually use it, but I thought it was kind of a unique setup. So.
It's cool. It's clean. They have like docks and buoys, and it's like the coolest thing that I've come across. I mean, it's massive too.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, perfect for triathlon. Are you biking outside then, or?
No, most of my biking right now is just on the trainer.
Yeah.
I find I can get a much more efficient workout within the time span that I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in our new HQ, I actually I put a private door from my office. It was my only request. I have a private door from my office right into the gym. So I will get off a call and literally get off the call, turn around, walk 20 feet out of my door onto my bike, cycle for 90 minutes, get off, walk back on the call, back on a call. So like it is like the most time efficient. As we get deeper into this prep, I'll start doing some rides outside
just to get used to it.
But for like time management, maxing out time, I find the trainer is effective and efficient, and also just safety.
Yeah,
I just like after getting hit by a car running, I'm trying to be low risk,
right,
as much as possible.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, and yeah, you can be so efficient on an indoor trainer too, because it's like if you want a specific intensity, you don't have to worry about anything other than just hitting the pedals at the right stroke rate and all that stuff. So it's nice.
Yeah, I just run Zwift, put it on erg mode.
Right. Yeah.
like yesterday's workout was it was a juicy one. It was a 90-minute session. But it was primarily focused on sweet spots. So there were 2 20-minute intervals at 265 watts. And like, towards the end of those 20-minute intervals, you're building up lactate in the blood, but it's getting cleared just enough,
right? So
you can keep going. But you can feel that lactate just accumulating in that last 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. It's like, dude, come on, just clear. So it was a good one though.
Yeah. Zwift has saved me. It's so much fun to gamify it.
That's what it is. It really does gamify it.
Yeah. I'm sold. So cool. Good stuff. Triathlon coming up. BPN is doing everything they can in the endurance world.
Trying to.
Yeah.
And then we got you coming to the Going World.
That's true. You got me to sign
April
up.
26.
I've got my first race of 2026 on the calendar.
Yeah, man. Love it.
Awesome, Nick. Well, where can people find you?
Yeah,
outside of just Googling your name.
YouTube. I've been documenting my life on YouTube since 2014. So if you just search Nick Bear on YouTube, I have over 1,000 videos now at this point. We've documented all the preps, all the races, building the business, and really just my life as a whole. I host a podcast called the Nick Bear Podcast. We release every Monday. And then on Instagram, it's Nick Bear Fitness.
Perfect. Well, I'll link all that stuff in the show notes too, so listeners can, if they don't already know, head over and check out what's coming up.
Appreciate it, Zach. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, have a great swim.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
Thanks for sticking around and listening to how I use the show sponsors. Maui Nui Venison is a product I discovered last year. What caught my eye was their quality and business model. They have paired the need to manage an invasive species with providing some of the most nutrient-dense meat you will find. The axis deer arrived in Maui in single digits but grew fast and have damaged the local ecosystem, and if left unchecked, are projected to reach up to 200,000 in number in future years. Maui Nui decided to solve this problem and minimize waste. Axis deer meat provides 43% of your daily value of protein in just 107 calories and boasts a 1.5 to 1 omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, which is the most balanced ratio of any red meat. This same 107 calories provides 22% of your daily value of vitamins and 37% of your daily value of minerals. They have a wide range of products including ground venison, leg medallions, rib chops, strip loin fillets, and loin chops. They also make a beef stick that includes an option with organ meats, which makes a perfect protein-packed snack that I will usually have in the afternoon before a strength session. I've also been enjoying the ground venison for dinner, usually paired with steamed vegetables or a sweet potato. You can find a bunch of recipes and ways to prepare their products on their website at mauinuivenison.com. Element Electrolytes is my go-to electrolyte supplement. Based on my electrolyte loss rate of 614 milligrams per liter, I begin my day with half a packet of one of their hot beverage flavors with my morning coffee. I rotate through all of them, but my favorite at the moment is the chocolate mint. Later in the day, I have been having either a packet of their watermelon flavor or a can of Element Sparkling, which is their carbonated electrolyte drink. I usually have the black cherry lime or watermelon flavor for those. If you are curious about how to dial in your own fluid and electrolyte setup, check out episode 300 of this podcast, where I dive into some of the things you can do at home to gauge how much fluid and electrolytes you may need. A free sample pack with your first purchase can be found at drinklmnt.com/HPO. Delta G ketones is the best researched exogenous ketone supplement on the market. The research on exogenous ketones is constantly evolving. Delta G is responsible for much of it, hosting 50-plus published studies and 20-plus ongoing studies, and have received DARPA grants designed for special forces. Delta G uses ketone esters, which is unmatched in raising blood ketone levels when matched per gram. The best use case, as the evidence currently stands, is as a post-workout supplement for better recovery and or during longer, lower-intensity sessions to help with mental focus. For this reason, I will have a bottle of Delta G Performance, that's the little blue bottle, after my biggest workouts for the week and during long run training sessions once I have been out running for about 45 to 60 minutes. Head over to deltagketones.com and enter BITTER20 for 20% off your next purchase. Currents, which is spelled Curranz, is a pre-workout supplement that I started using this year based on the mounting evidence that has started pointing towards them as being a potential endurance workout supplement that can help move the needle on things like recovery, blood flow, fat oxidation rate, reduce muscle damage, etc. They have 40 plus studies on their website if you want to check those out. The way I use this product is when I wake up in the morning, I usually have a cup of coffee and some electrolytes and just start my day getting hydrated. And while I'm doing that, I'll have a couple capsules of Currants along with that. And then I get out for my first workout. If I'm doing something a little bit longer, like a really long ultra-specific long run or an ultramarathon race or something like that, where I'm going to be out there for multiple hours, I'll usually have another capsule or two every 4 hours while out there doing that. So I'm excited to see what this can possibly do for some of the races I got coming up this year. If you want to check them out and some of the research that they have, head over to currantsusa.com. That's CURRANZUSA.com. And don't forget to plug in the promo code BITTER20DEAL, which will get you 20% off your first purchase. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Human Performance Outliers podcast with Zach Bitter.